Status meeting. Those two soul-crushing words we all dread hearing are often held too frequently, go on for way too long, involve an overload of outdated or ineffective information, and make us feel mentally drained. But research is showing that status meetings aren't just making us feel bad, they may actually be destroying our productivity and possibly even our mental and physical health. I'm Jason Hoflick, and this is another TSP moment where we look back to episode 64 and take a deeper dive into status meetings. This episode is brought to you by Bloomfilter. The industry failure rate of software projects is now over 70%, and the folks at Bloomfilter want to fix that. Bloomfilter is an exciting new app that brings unprecedented amounts of data about every one of your projects straight to your fingertips, giving you insight never before seen in any one single app. Bloomfilter's revolutionary new project platform dramatically improves communication, predictability, and efficiency across the software development lifecycle. Bloomfilter provides software teams complete visibility into their projects to drive consistent, valuable outcomes. Working hard just isn't enough anymore. You need to work smart as well, and Bloomfilter is how you do it. Head on over to bloomfilter.co, that's BLOOMFILTER.co, to sign up today and start changing the way you work. Okay, so we aren't saying here that meetings in and of themselves are bad or aren't needed. Meetings are important, and we need meetings, and practically every field within every industry on the planet has some type of established system and schedule for meetings. What is generally dreaded, though, when it comes to meetings and status meetings is the frequency and the duration of them. When you're sitting there on slide 57 of 144 in what may be one of many meetings for that day that will take the better part of an hour and a half per meeting, and you still have so much work to do and so much on your plate and so much on your mind as it relates to your job, this is discouraging, and it's killing your productivity. Now, according to Deanna Ricci over at Calendar, the average person spends 12 hours a week preparing for and attending meetings. For middle management, the number increases by 35%, and for upper management, it increases by 50%. So if you do the math, that's over 24 hours, one full day a week, spent in meetings. And these meetings, on average, waste $34 billion annually. Even more interesting is as far back as 2017, Harvard Business Review reported the findings from a study done by researchers at the University of North Carolina. Now, these researchers interviewed 182 senior managers from a broad range of industries, and of those interviewed, 65% said that meetings kept them from completing their work. 71% believed the meetings were unproductive and inefficient. 64% said the meetings come at the expense of deep thinking, and 62% said the meetings miss opportunities to bring people together, all of which undoubtedly leads to higher turnover. These numbers are especially troubling given our current economic climate where people seem to be quitting their jobs en masse, a phenomenon that economists are actually dubbing the Great Resignation. It's no longer a question of whether excessive meetings are unproductive. The data is showing that they are. Perhaps this is why, according to a CNBC article written by Ruth Umo, that many successful billionaires like Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Dallas Mavericks owner and Shark Tank host Mark Cuban, and SpaceX and Tesla's Elon Musk are avoiding productivity-killing meetings altogether. But even more than just affecting productivity and damaging the bottom line, excessive status meetings may have mental and physical repercussions as well. Calendar's John Rampton wrote an article citing that excessive meetings add to workplace stress, which is already very high for most employees. Workplace stress added from these excessive meetings can affect concentration, confidence, and lead to depression, mood disorders, and anxiety. And all of these can have an effect negatively on your physical health as well, upon things like blood pressure, causing headaches, insomnia, different things like that. Fortunately, research is also showing some ways to alleviate this. For starters, many companies have switched their in-person meetings to stand-up meetings. And we're not talking about the Monday morning stand-ups. We're talking about literally standing on your feet for the entire meeting. And this has been shown to increase endorphin levels, the feel-good chemicals that your brain releases. It decreases distractions since you're on your feet. And these meetings, best of all, are 34% shorter. In addition, doing little things like setting a clear agenda before a meeting, adding humor and asking open-ended questions during the meeting to relieve stress and loosen people up, and getting honest feedback after the meeting can encourage positivity. Other solutions that seem to be working very well are meeting-free hours, where employers are guaranteeing that employees will have certain hours throughout the week that meetings just simply cannot be scheduled, and ultimately increasing the use of tools like Asana and Slack, collaboration architecture that allows communication to be fast, efficient, and doesn't necessarily bog you down with having to sit through a meeting. These are small steps to take, but small steps can add up very fast in a big way. If status meetings are becoming so problematic across all industries, and data is showing that this is the case, then this likely means that the software industry is being hit that much harder, and executives must be aware and know how to approach engaging with employees in productive ways. This is where our conversation picks up, as Andrew and Fahad sit down with Jim Thomas of Freedom Financial to discuss status meetings.
Yeah, so the question that I have there is that if these systems of records are not continuously updated, why are we still reporting from them? Why are we exporting this data and trying to manipulate it and report to executives? I think everybody generally understands this is maybe not the most accurate information or it's outdated, yet we still
Sure.
have weekly status meetings. Why do we keep doing that?
Well, that's because we need the 40-page PowerPoint template. That's what we use that for.
Uh,
That's where that
it's
comes into play.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of
um,
sense.
it's actually interesting. It's why the meeting occurs because in my mind, it's a forcing function inside of organizations. I know that 3 o'clock, the status is going to be updated for my project. And so if I don't update the system by noon on Tuesday, some arbitrary date, then my status isn't going to be reflected properly. And so these meetings and these we'll call them checkpoints occur, and they're a forcing function to get people to update. No one wants to go into their one-on-one with their manager if you're a salesperson and have opportunities that are up to date. And so they update their opportunities, and the one-on-ones is a really common pattern for that reason there. And so, there's it sucks because it's 45 minutes and 40 slides later kind of mindset. But I think there's a huge opportunity here in terms of changing the paradigm and changing the behaviors of organizations and saving everyone, quite frankly, thousands of hours across most medium-sized organizations on
Yeah.
changing this particular behavior.
What I think would be a great start to that is, and it honestly, it doesn't even matter what the system of record is, right? It really doesn't. Like, it could be post-it notes. I mean, it could be a notepad. It doesn't matter. As long as you're taking your deliverables, speaking to them in such a way that your leadership team understands them and can tie them back to their objectives, right? Like, what is my outcome? What am I getting from this deliverable? Is if you're able to narrate that, then maybe the system of record is just helping you execute the work. I think that's why a lot of folks maybe today are still using presentations, because they're abstracting that engineering layer into the presentation to narrate against that deliverable. By shifting your mindset a little bit and saying, hey, look, when we take an overview of our system of record, these are the components that need to be modified so that whether you're an engineer speaking to the deliverable or an executive reading the deliverable and understanding what outcome that ties to, you're all speaking at the exact same level. And I think that you know, that's where kind of changing the mindset of the status meeting comes into play. Start from a common ground of information, you know, eliminate the need of urgent updates a few minutes before a status meeting, get that deck out hours before it's due, or even set up in such a way that it's real time, right? Those are the types of mindsets that will change how status meetings are running and how they operate.
Well, what about an alternative? So I like what you're saying. One of the things I've done in the past, as I've run business teams and sales teams, is that we're not going to go through the sales CRM at all. I hate going line by line and trying to
Sure.
see what's going on. It's like really talk about the main issues. What are the big challenges? Because a lot of these software projects, they're very complex, and to boil it down to say, you know, green, yellow and red, and let me just go walk you through a status update. I don't know if it really fully captures the complexity of, really achieving these initiatives.
No, I think you're right. It definitely does not capture the complexity, and that's why when describing those deliverables and tying them back to outcomes, because when we leverage our executive staff, we want to make sure that they're understanding where this particular initiative is at any given time, that they're understanding, what the staff needs from them. Like, do we need a decision? Do we need an escalation? Do we need a roadblock removed? Those types of things. If that information can be conveyed in real time in a fashion that is not going into a system and clicking through, like maybe if we could get that summarized, it doesn't even need to be in a deck. It could be, I mean, it could be in a text message, frankly, right? There's a lot of different ways I think that you could communicate it, but the key in a lot of the meetings that I go into is I want to make sure that when we have executive staff there, that they understand what their responsibility is, that it's not just being spoken to about a status and then them asking questions. Like, we want to make sure, hey, you've received this report, you've received your update. The next the next thing is, that next 30 seconds is we either need to assess a risk or make a decision or go from there. And if they still want to continue to have those status meetings, great. If not, though, that stuff can perhaps be communicated in another way.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a personal mission to just kill status meetings forever.
Yeah, I think what would be great is if you could if you could take a look at your status meetings today, right? Like any of the PMs or any of the product folk that are running a status meeting, and if you're going through those status meetings and referencing content that's on a slide or in a presentation or in a chart somewhere, um, without requiring a decision or an escalation, and it's really just a discussion, that's great if that's the intention of the meeting, right? But it if if you're doing that every week or every couple of weeks, that may not be the right cadence. I mean, you may need to pull that back to less frequent, and then you may need to report on those status meetings, and not even this project status, right, or initiative status. Report on that in a different way, right? Send out a summary, ask if there's questions. Again, text, chat tools, whatever it may be.
We appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you next time.